What's your earliest memory of the internet? Write down what your fondest memory is of the internet. Have fun watching. Story 1. When my dad announced he had installed the internet, we all went to his office for a demo. Someone decided to load a page full of pictures, so we stood there chatting for a good 10 minutes, while the page revealed each line of pixels individually. It was the first time I ever saw a modem and heard it sing its song. It averaged a speed of 11K on a good day. I was mesmerized. Suddenly I could do more than write stories on Word, drawing on Paint, or playing solitaire. I could access the whole world. I didn't know what to do with it yet, but I had to be on it. Story 2. Dad bought my first PC. It came with an ugly 56K dial-up modem. I remember connecting all the cables and hooking it up and dialing for the first time. We had never heard that weird sound it makes. Then we opened Google for the first time and started searching stuff randomly, very, very slowly. Story 3. The definition of internet means different things to different people. Purely speaking, I believe 1988 with the TCP/IP protocol was probably the beginning of it and was using an internet relay chat system that included University of Washington and other schools on the West Coast. I was logged in some computer science friend that had an account. Prior to that, I used BBSs as early as 1984. I surfed the internet via World Wide Web in 1991 in Mosaic browser. Netscape came out and was better. Story 4. My grandfather was showing it to me and said we can search the internet for anything, describing it a bit like an encyclopedia or something. He asked me what I should look up. I said Pamela Anderson because Baywatch was huge, and even though I didn't watch it, it was a celebrity name I knew. When the search results came in, he covered my eyes. Story 5. Some weird shit noise coming from somewhere. Followed about 10 minutes later with someone, mom or dad, shouting, "Oh no! Get Cassandra away from the phone! I've lost connection!" Summit like that. Apparently I went investigating for the noise, and had figured out it had something to do with the phone. I also once dropped the phone over the 10th floor balcony. And no, I don't know why. If it was a clock, I would have known. It was one of them big heavy things with push-button dial. It didn't bounce. Story 6. 2006 baby here. I went to a private school, so the older grades had their own school-distributed laptop. We had to give it back if we left the school OFC, but we were allowed to take it home for homework and stuff. And the younger kids had communal school iPads. There was like a whole stack of them, and when we did something that required iPads, the teacher would hand them out during class, and then collect them back at the end of the lesson. I have really bad memory, so I don't remember much about my childhood, but my earliest memory of using the internet, I was trying to search Google for images of a specific Build-A-Bear plush I had at the time. I was a dumb kid, so I did this by typing the name of my plushie, the name that I gave it, into the search bar and expecting it to understand what I meant. Somehow, eventually, I managed to find images of the specific bunny plush on Google. I forgot exactly how, but they were all dressed in little outfits. BC Build-A-Bear also sells little outfits for the plushies. I was wanting to find an image that was more accurate to my own specific plush I had at home. I didn't have clothes for it. So I remember typing something like, Build-A-Bear bunny toy naked, and ended up with pictures of what I back then described as, and loudly announced to the teacher as, naked tan men wrestling. The teacher took my iPad away after that, and I had no idea why until many years later. Story 7. 3 Rivers, Free Net, TRFN, from Carnegie Library. I still remember the dial-up number for their service, prior to finding that I remember my dad having access to Prodigy and CompuServe, but that was the first time I was able to do what I wanted on the internet. It was all text-based and operated through Telnet, and you had to use up and down to navigate from hyperlink to hyperlink and use the right arrow to follow a link or view a picture, but it felt so freeing. Story 8, about 1990, downtown Taipei. A friend who was crazy about computers came and hooked his modem onto my computer. No mouse, of course. We typed in this absurdly long address I found in a newsletter about whales, and lo and behold, we were reading an article from a university in Denmark. I was amazed. Sometime before that, someone had told me about email, but I didn't actually see any. Story 9, Windows 3.11, so 1992/1993-ish, installing Winsock Netscape Gold on a 14.4 kilobits per second US robotics modem. No shitty Win modem here. I was 14Y/O. I was actually thinking about it a few weeks ago. It was a magical time where everything seems magical. Now, as an IT manager, with more power in my keyboard/3D printer Stream Deck than my 386 back then, I feel nothing. The last time I felt anything even remotely close was when I got my HTC Vive VR headset. That magic is lost. Fuck, I'm old. Story 10, SUNY Stony Brook. computer lab, and being in a Unix chat room with everyone going /s/l. I also vaguely remember in 1999 waiting 4 hours for a Disney movie trailer to load. I want to say Toy Story, and making a GeoCities webpage LOL all those neighborhoods. I can also remember MySpace, obviously, and even the OG college Facebook from my friend who went there. It was destroying girls' confidence, harassment. Just awful stuff. Story 11. 1992, my dad signed us up for Prodigy. It wasn't the internet as you see today. It was a closed network where you could post on message boards with other Prodigy members. There was a bit of news and different information sites. Dial-up, of course. I was 15, 16, and could chat with people in different states. Thought that was pretty cool. It was kind of like Reddit, in a way. Story 12. Before the days of search engines and advertising, you found out about websites through a sort of word-of-mouth scheme. Everyone's page had a links page that would send you to their favorite spots on the web. I can remember a website that offered software downloads called The Slaughterhouse. Just a bunch of great useful software for free. No advertising, no payment, no scams. Don't know why, but I think about that place series as Lyle, emblematic of the early web. That and Telnet Talkers. Story 13. In the mid-1980s, when I was a 20-something, there was a story on the news about white supremacist groups using computer networks to spread their hateful news, and they showed a computer, probably an Apple Tekken, with a swastika on it made of green X's. A woman I worked with saw it too, and brought it up the next day. She was horrified, as was I, and said, "And that's allowed due to free speech." About a decade later, I was in college. Yeah, I was a non-traditional student. And the professor held up a shiny disc and asked us what it was. We all said, "Duh, it's a CD," and she replied, "No, it's a CD-ROM," and then explained what it was. She also asked us at some point, "How many of you have heard of the internet?" Truthfully, it was mostly in the news because of the Bernardo Homolka murder trial in Canada, which did more to boost awareness of the internet than any other single event. Story 14, 1986. A friend studying electrical engineering and I returned to his apartment after a night of clubbing at ~0230. He looked over at his first-generation PC sitting on the carpet in what was ostensibly the dining area, because of course he furnished the place exactly as you would expect a male engineering student to do, and excitedly said he wanted to show me something. As the dial-up modem sang through its whale tones, he explained that a few universities had linked their mainframes via the phone lines. I don't think he used the term internet. He said the most interesting thing on it was a massively difficult IQ test hosted by Harvard. He wagered me $5 that he could beat me at it, having already done it once. I said that experience might just give him a chance. I don't remember anything about how he navigated to the website. Black and white ASCII only, of course. The most crucial difference from today is that the Harvard server absolutely controlled user navigation. Edgy, here's a mathematical equation. Type in the answer. You have 10 seconds. No ability to pause, no additional tab, etc. The user totally played the host's game. He flopped on the floor in front of the box and approximately 30 minutes later crowingly showed me his results. He did very well. 1 in 500 well. I plopped down in his place. It was every bit as brutal as he had described. It demonstrated that those old Mensa quizzes in Reader's Digest were the jokes that they were. Best $5 I've ever made in my life and my introduction to a fascinating new technology. Story 15. Using different credit cards, my mom had to keep getting AOL for free. 10. Total Entertainment Network, old school gaming service that connected you to other PPL who wanted to play multiplayer games over the internet like Descent, Duke 3D, and Mech Warrior. Having a ton of Juarez emails full of piracy, naked pics too. Those Star Trek AOL chat rooms where everyone gets assigned a job on a starship and you pretty much improv a Star Trek mission. I was pretty young and didn't know enough of Star Trek yet to participate well, but it was fun still. Although nothing compares to the summer of the beta for Ultima Online. I had so much fun that beta and the first year or two of initial release. Story 16. I was a huge Metallica fan in 1995. I saw they had a website on the internet. It seemed like this top secret thing, and I just had to see it. I remember begging my mom to take me to Walmart because they had demo desktop computers there. I ran to the electronics section and found a PC. I clicked on the Internet Explorer icon only to get a blank page. Dang it, Walmart hasn't put these on the internet. My next attempt was at school. We had a single computer in the library that was internet connected. The school librarian always liked me, so one day when I was in there between classes, I asked her if I could try out the internet. She said sure. Y'all don't understand how monumental of a moment this was for me. I didn't know what the internet was other than the URL. I guessed where to type the URL, and was literally shivering with anticipation, nervousness to see what happened next. Slowly, images of my favorite band were appearing on a computer at my school no less. My mind was blown. It was interactive information that wasn't on my album booklet. It wasn't on the latest metal magazine publication. It was unique. I felt closer to the band, like an elite fan. After browsing around the page, I tried my next most anticipated site. Also the only other site I knew to try, LOL. www.nintendo.com. I still remember seeing Mario on the computer and freaking out. It's hard to explain the impact of the internet to a generation that has grown up with iPhones, but I'll never forget this moment as long as I live. It opened a new world to me, and yes, I greatly miss the days when only us nerds were online. Story 17. That's a tough question. The first wide-area networking I encountered in earnest was at university in 1986, when we, in the UK, had access to a non-internet network called Janet, which used different sorts of protocols. But of course, there was a bridge from Janet to the internet. My guess is, it wasn't until sometime in 1987 that I first tried using Usenet, which would have come in via the internet into Janet, I suspect. But I might have had or sent emails that went out to the USA prior to that. Now I do remember when I ran across a brand new idea called the web, which was very exciting. In the lab, we talked about HTTP and HTML at tea break when it was first launched. There were clearly lots of possibilities, and it was much nicer than things like Gopher, which we had been using before then. Story 18. That's a tough question. The first wide-area networking I encountered in earnest was at university in 1986 when we, in the UK, had access to a non-internet network called Janet, which used different sorts of protocols. But of course, there was a bridge from Janet to the internet. My guess is, it wasn't until sometime in 1987 that I first tried using Usenet, which would have come in via the internet into Janet, I suspect, but I might have had or sent emails that went out to the USA prior to that. Now I do remember when I ran across a brand new idea called the web, which was very exciting. In the lab, we talked about HTTP and HTML at tea break when it was first launched. There were clearly lots of possibilities, and it was much nicer than things like Gopher, which we had been using before then. Story 19. Typing in random words in the address bar and adding .com to see if it went anywhere interesting. sun.com, rock.com, internet.com, etc. Pretty sure that was the very first thing I did when we got our first dial-up internet service, circa 1995. I was so excited to have internet finally. Only one other kid in my class had it. But once I had it, I didn't really understand what the hell I was supposed to do with it. Story 20. I remember getting rick-rolled, and when I tried to close the window, a pop-up kept showing up with one line of the song's lyrics. I was young enough that I didn't know about Alt plus F4 or Task Manager, so I couldn't close the window and was stuck in a loop of closing pop-ups until I got to the end of the song. I learned a valuable lesson about suspicious links that day. Story 21, 1991. Freshman college, walk into some friend's dorm room, he's on a computer typing away. It's, I think, an old Commodore 64 with the green typing and nothing else. I'm asking him what he's doing. He says he's chatting with somebody in Germany. I was blown the fuck away. He was able to instantly talk back and forth with someone for free. A phone call to Germany would have been so expensive. He also knew how to break into credit bureau information and get people's credit info, cards, and everything. Story 22. Earliest memories after we got home internet was mainly browsing video game websites and message boards, circa 1997 or so. I remember a GoldenEye 007 message board where people engaged in violent flame wars over whether or not Oddjob or Mayday could be found in the single-player game. It had no account system, meaning anyone could name themselves whatever they want. You could make a post, and then another person could make a post using your name and say, "I am a huge." It was literally the Wild West. It was great. Story 23. Just before we got our own modem, was it 15, 6K, there was a place in town called the Software Library. We would go there and buy shareware games on Stiffies. The cool game companies were Apogee, Sierra, Origin, Westwood, Electronic Arts. My game list was huge. Well, the first section of each. Duke Nukem 1 and 2, Hocus Pocus, Monster Bash, Crystal Caves, Dangerous Dave, Wacky Wheels, Banger Game, Cosmos Cosmic Adventure, Keen, Wolf 3D, One Must Fall, Jazz Jackrabbit, Flip. There were so many cool games. The software library was the only way. Until we got a modem, and then I could find my own with Netscape Navigator and Yahoo. Although an 8 MB game would take a couple of hours to download. Story 24. I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. When I went to college in 1994 was the first time I had internet access. There was a website called Becky's Lep Spot. I don't know how I found it because I don't think there was Google yet, but that is the earliest website I can remember. I've looked the website up in recent years. It's gone, unfortunately. Edit. It's still there. It just looks like it hasn't been updated since 2003 and the page is having trouble loading, probably built with Flash. Story 25. My earliest memory has already claimed the top 3 comments here, so I'll say my fondest memory was discovering that Halo PC had online multiplayer, which I had no clue was even a thing. The menu wrote multiplayer, to which I assumed was a local-only thing, like plug in a controller and play with a friend kind of local. One day I just got curious and clicked it. A few days later I joined a clan, and the following years were simply the best times I've ever had online. Oh, and websites like Steak and Cheese and Rotten were pretty scarring. It was truly the Wild West days of the internet. Story 26. I was probably about 8 years old, about 20 years ago, obsessed with Lego's Bionicle, and my mum took me with her to work one Saturday. She only needed to work for about an hour. To entertain me, she brought up the Bionicle website. The fact that such a thing existed blew my mind. Keep in mind that up until that moment, I didn't even know the internet existed. I knew how to use a computer, but only to play games and use Office and such. Story 27. It was 1999 and I was 6 years old. My next-door neighbor, who was 7, interestingly, we shared a first name. Our dads had the same first name. Our moms had the same middle name, and we both had 2 dogs with the same exact names as well. All coincidences, as they moved into their house when I was 4 or 5 and I'd always lived where I did. Introduced me to Neopets when I was playing at their house one day. The dad helped me to make an account and my first pet. I chose a loop and named him Fire Cherry or something like that. Story 28. I do remember seeing the Windows 95 commercials. Being super young, I was super confused as to what that was. Eventually, winter of 1997, I was about 8. My aunt and uncle got a desktop computer with this thing called the Internet. Naturally, it was AOL. I was only allowed to go on nick.com, but I was so amazed. I would send emails to my aunts too, LOL. At some point, a year or so later, my grandpa got a computer with wireless internet. I couldn't believe almost everything had a website, even Oreos and McDonald's. In 1999, my parents finally got a Dell desktop with internet. Only then did I realize it's connected to the phone and can kick you off. I was like 14/15 when I discovered AIM and chat rooms, ASL, and how there's real sickos out there. Oh lordy. Story 29, asterisk audio coupler, 150 baud, into a thermal paper teletypewriter. I'd print, download, and respond to my dad's emails every night. Discovered Wumpus. Asterisk later we got a VT52 with integrated 300 baud audio coupled. What fun. The Vi editor. iKick. No more paper. Asterisk eventually a 1200 baud modem. Then things got crazy. Asterisk in college, we hooked a 2400 baud modem to an old PDP-8, connected the modem to the uni, at a friend's house and set up a BBS and email server, and wrote our Unix C homework on it. Asterisk much later, I had a 56K US robotics modem, and planned to take over the world. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.